code HERD, 36 for 36 sorbet roses. Yeah, I mean, the media's always done this. They pick people they're going to defend, and they pick people they're going to clobber. And this is just what the media does. This is why a lot of Americans no longer trust the media. They think the media's got biases and agendas. And I can say this as a member of the media. One of the reasons I do that segment called Colin Was Right, Colin Was Wrong, it's my highest rated segment of the week. Because I want to come out and say, yeah, I whiffed at this. Yeah, I was wrong on that. Yeah, this surprised me. Wow, I really messed up. I think it adds credibility. When I'm right, I tell you all the time. When I'm wrong on Mondays, my highest rated segment, and you obviously like when I admit I'm wrong. Like, the media does this. They coddle, and there's no explanation. I'll give you an example. So Ricky Rubio outplayed Russell Westbrook in this Utah series. Westbrook was awful. The last 2 years in the playoffs, he has been awful in the fourth quarter. Crickets. We've decided Billy Donovan doesn't criticize him. OKC coddles him. The media coddles him. Let me ask you, when Chris Paul struggled in the playoffs, did the media protect him? No, they crucified him. When James Harden was awful in the last game of the playoffs last year, did the media coddle him? No, they clobbered him. The media, Ty Lue has regularly criticized LeBron, his coach. And not even a coach with a lot of leverage. Steve Kerr has regularly criticized Kevin Durant and the roster. Westbrook, in the last 2 years in the fourth quarter, he was god-awful against Utah and their rookie point guard. Once again, last 2 years, look at his stats. He is the worst shooting player in the NBA playoffs. His plus-minus the last 2 years is minus 45. That's with Paul George, with Steven Adams, now a veteran coach, Carmelo Anthony. His field goal percentage, 28%. His three-point percentage, 18%. Last 2 years, fourth quarter. These are dreadful numbers. Steve Kerr clobbers KD and his team. Ty Lue clobbers LeBron. Media, fans all over Chris Paul. I'm not a hater of Westbrook. I'm the balance. The media is so much about propping him up. I feel like I come in and just say, time out here. Who's the balance on this thing? You know, when Rush Limbaugh started doing it, Rush Limbaugh's argument was, you say I'm a right winger. I say I'm the balance. Everybody else leans left. I'll go right and balance it out. Whether that's true or not, that's how I feel about Westbrook. I mean, his coach can't say anything. His GM can't say anything. We've had it's crickets. We've had star players leave. Victor Oladipo leaves like a different player. Sabonis leaves. He's incredible. Like, at some point, am I being a hater or just saying the truth here? If he loses tonight, and again, I think Oklahoma City is going to win this series. They have to. They've got way better players. I think they'll actually play their best game of the series tonight, and they'll win tonight. But you can't go into a story if you're in the media and already have your story before asking questions. You got to let stuff develop a little bit. Jenny with the news.
No. Turn on the news. This is the Herd Line News.
By the way, he took 0 shots against Utah in the fourth quarter. He didn't take a shot.
Yeah,
we crushed Kobe for that. We crushed LeBron when he didn't take a shot in the first 10 minutes of the Pacers series.
Yeah.
It's the biggest game of the year. They didn't take a shot in the fourth.
Well, sticking to that story, Colin, it's interesting because Westbrook continues to struggle in the playoffs. I know you've talked about it. And Ricky Rubio was incredible, right? Triple-double.
Yeah.
Got it done for them Saturday night.
Best game maybe as a pro in crisis.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And it's what Westbrook is saying after the game that's surprising. And he was asked about Rubio, and this is his response.
What allowed him to get so hot there?
He made some shots. Too comfortable. But I'm going to shut that off next game, though. Guarantee that.
Oh, boy. Okay.
It's just like, why say that? Well, you are putting a target on your back. You talked about that earlier, but it's also just not the right approach to have, in my opinion.
Yeah, I'm not guarantees, just put more. If I said this, Jenny, tomorrow I guarantee I'm going to have my best show ever. I'd be sitting, the minute I got off the show today, I'd be like, John, we have to have the best show tomorrow. Like, we have to literally be great tomorrow. By the way, Donovan Mitchell, what did he say after the game?
he said nothing. And it was a tweet that was really the most telling. It was that little
Zip it up.
emoji, like I'm gonna
I
say,
love
he's
this.
a rookie. Like he gets it.
Yeah,
I
he's a
feel like you just get it or you don't.
You kind of get it or you don't. You have self-awareness or you don't. And Donovan Mitchell, like, I'll let the 10-year veteran make
I'm
guarantees.
gonna let the play
I'm
speak
just
for
gonna
myself.
Zip it. Yeah.
Okay, this story I really like, although I kind of feel bad for this Milwaukee restaurant because we're throwing them a little bit more under the bus. The Baler Cantina issued a public apology because they did not seat the Greek Freak after the win. He was waiting there wanting to eat at this restaurant, and a different diner took to social media basically saying, how the heck is no one helping this guy out? He waited there for 10 minutes. No one helped him. They issued a public apology.
Can I say this is my biggest criticism of restaurants?
Okay.
This is my biggest criticism. When you walk into a restaurant, and this is for all you restaurateurs, okay, acknowledge that you've noticed people who've walked in. If I have to wait
That's a
10
good
minutes,
point.
I'm fine. I am fine having to wait 10 minutes. I booked a restaurant. I have a reservation. I'm with friends. I like your food. I've obviously,
Sure.
it's got a good reputation. But don't walk past me 15 times and not acknowledge. Just acknowledge, hey, we got a 10-minute wait. Thank you for coming. Be with you in a second.
Appreciate it.
Thank you. Like, that is such bad business. And it happens to me regularly, and the reason I don't walk out is mostly because I'm hungry and I'm there, and I'm too lazy to go to another restaurant.
He's also 6'11", though, and he's the most recognizable face in Milwaukee. And how did he literally just won the game, and this is such a amazing PR thing for this Mexican restaurant, and no one notices it?
By the way, my wife was in the restaurant business. Her family was. And my wife was a bartender at a place called Butch McGuire's in Chicago when she was, like, in college. And so my wife always says this. When you're running a bar, you know how in sports we always say keep your head in a swivel? My wife always talks about when you're a bartender, head in a swivel. When somebody sits down at the end of the bar, be with you in a second. Watch 21-year-old millennial bartenders. This is it. You got to be like a linebacker in the NFL. Head in a swivel. Acknowledge people sit down. Acknowledge you appreciate them coming. Just a head nod, eye contact. But
Thanks for coming in.
Be there in a second.
Yeah. You think any of the Packers would wait?
Forget that it's Giannis. It doesn't matter if that's anybody. Acknowledge the guys in the restaurant.
Yeah, the best is he ended up going to a pizza place down the street, and they were all over it. They were posting photos, Instagram, thanks for coming in. Anyways, all right, and finally, I cover a lot of sports around here, Colin, including Supercross, and I've never had it pay off where Gronk news happens at Supercross, and this was really special because he was at the race, and I was thinking a little bit more about this. He ended up doing a press conference. We're going to take a listen to it, but 2 years ago he was at Gillette as well. I remember him there. He didn't make nearly as big of a deal of it, and I thought, wow, this is really unique that he chose this opportunity right now to say a lot. Let's take a listen.
I've been riding dirt bikes. I've been training really hard. I can vroom vroom really good. I can ride that bike like no other.
Are you still contemplating retirement from football?
Depends how my racing skills go today. They're gonna see a freak leak when I come back. That's what.
So you are coming back?
Oh, maybe.
He's goofball.
He loves it. And my favorite part is Ricky Carmichael there, who's the GOAT of Supercross.
Yeah.
And he was saying, hey, I play with another GOAT here. Look, I mean, I just feel like he made a statement by just talking about the racing. And I joked with him after, just when he was walking off, hey, it's cool to be here. See you soon. He's like, I'm focusing on my racing. I mean, he was telling everyone.
Oh, yeah, that would listen.
That. So
racing, I'm into
cool
racing. I'm into racing. It's Gillette Stadium. I'm into racing.
It's just a little by design.
Too convenient. Jenny with the news.
Well, that's the news.
And thanks for stopping by.
The Herd Lie
He's
News.
a former NFL player and a former NFL scout, and somebody I absolutely rely on, especially when we get toward the NFL draft. This is what he's done for years. He's made his living on it. He's our friend, NFL Network analyst Bucky Brooks. So you and I have a major disagreement. Let's not waste any time here.
What are we
You
disagreeing
love
on?
Baker Mayfield.
Oh, I love him. Where'd you
I
get
was
that
on
from?
Twitter this weekend. It was
No.
I'm sorry. I think there's a lot of bust here. I don't like his size. I think he's a marginal athlete. His judgment worries me.
Okay, I'm trying to figure out where you got that I love him.
Well,
because he and I've had Twitter beefs.
Oh,
Like,
you and Baker have?
Yeah.
Okay, so you have been – okay, so by the way, that worries me. That he's going after Bucky Brooks. He doesn't have the self-awareness.
No, it's fine. So I wrote a scouting report on Baker Mayfield called The Book on Baker Mayfield. And the one part that evidently he told me that I left out was that he was a winner. And so I was like, okay, that's fine, but, like, what is it? And so at the end of the day, when I look at Baker Mayfield is a great college player. Baker Mayfield has done a lot of really good things, like the fact that he's a two-time walk-on. He's become a Heisman Trophy winner. All of that stuff is great. But when it comes to looking at how he projects to the pros, my first year scouting was the Drew Brees draft. And as good as Drew Brees was at Purdue, he still was taken in the second round. When you look at guys, like, the draft is really like a beauty pageant. You have to check off a certain amount of boxes to be worthy of being a first-round pick. And in Baker Mayfield, he's a tad under 6'1". He doesn't have exceptional athleticism.
He does not.
He's not necessarily an A-plus arm talent. And so when you are undersized and you're not a world-class athlete, what is the one trait that you have that's going to help you overcome it?
Thank you.
And so when people say, oh, Russell Wilson, man, Russell Wilson is remarkable. Russell Wilson was a two-sport star. He's pro in baseball and football. Like, he broke all of Phillip Rivers' records at NC State before going to Wisconsin.
He's a world-class athlete.
It's different. And then with Drew Brees, look, Drew Brees he set the world on fire at Purdue. And Baker Mayfield has done some great things, but I'm not necessarily confident that he is Drew Brees. So I conservatively have tagged him as Case Keenum.
That's what I say.
Which is fine, with a winning quarterback, whatever. Yeah. But to think that I'm going to take him in the top 10, that would be tough. But he's going, and we need to ready ourselves. He may go in the top 5, and there's some conversation that he might be the first one to hear his name called. So he could go anywhere in the top 5, and we just have to be ready that guy may be the number 1 pick in the draft.
When Cam Newton came out, Nolan Nowacki has a football guide. And he asked questions about Cam's personality. He said he was arrogant and condescending. And I remember the pushback was, that's too personal. That's out of bounds. And my takeaway is, well, if I'm going to give a guy $100 million and you're the CEO of it, I want to know your personality. Josh Rosen, there doesn't seem to be any reluctance to crush his personality.
It's kind of funny to me.
He's condescending. He is arrogant. Well, time out. I thought that stuff was all personal. When I look at it, my number one concern about Rosen is his durability. Like, he's not a real escape guy. I mean, if he gets into trouble, you're not going to run away from, like, Russell Wilson. Do you think it's fair to question Cam's personality going in? I did. And Rosen's now? I do.
You know, I think it depends on the context, because I wonder sometimes with the criticism on Rosen, do you really know him enough to really weigh in on that? And so does it come from coaches? Does it come from other people that have been around him? What is it that we're really talking about? Because a lot of it is centered on his background. Okay, yeah, he comes from a level of affluence. Like, his parents are successful. That's fine. That doesn't necessarily bother me. He's outspoken. He speaks his mind. He wants to know the why. Well, every great quarterback that I've ever been around, you better be able to explain the why, and there's going to be a give and take. And I think what some people have a tough time is taking what Pop Warner in high school football is versus what the pros is. In the pros, it's a cooperation. We're partners. We're working together to make sure that we're successful, particularly when we're the quarterback. Tom Brady has a say when it goes back and forth with Josh McDaniels. The great quarterbacks do. And so for Josh, having coached Josh at events, having coached against Josh in high school, highly intelligent, very cerebral, wants to know the ins and outs. Because for some of those guys, when they know the whys, then they can pick you apart, much like Peyton Manning and the others. So I don't think his personality is as bad as it appears, but I do know for old school guys, traditionalists who aren't necessarily used to dealing with millennials who want to know the whys, it can rub them the wrong way if it's not managed properly.
Well, you know what? If your quarterback's smart and asks questions and he's great, deal with it. Like, sometimes coaches, you got to deal with it. Okay, explain this to me. So you've been a player and you've been a scout. This seems like an easy one, and I don't get it. It's the deepest running back draft. I've had a GM and a regional scouting director who I trust. Had dinner with a GM. I talked to a regional scouting director. They have both said the same thing. As far as running backs go, this is a good draft. You can go to Royce Freeman at Oregon, could be the 7th best running back, and he's going to make the NFL. And so the Giants, who need to rebuild their O-line, He's lost a center. And they got Nate Solder, but he can still maybe the fourth best left tackle in that division with Jason Peters and Tyron Smith. And they're going to draft a running back. You draft guys. When the draft is wildly deep at a position, does that matter? Like, why wouldn't you solve other issues and find really good players at other positions? I don't get that.
You have to grade the players for what they are. And I'm going to tell you, Saquon Barkley and Bradley Chubb are the two best players in this draft.
You think they're the two best players?
Two best players in the draft, and it's not close. Like, those guys are outstanding. And with Saquon Barkley, he is the best because when you go down and you look at what Saquon Barkley is, character is exemplary. You can't find a guy who can say anything negative about him. Great worker, overachiever. We always talk about finding blue-chip talents with blue-collar mentalities. That's who Saquon Barkley is. And Dave Gettleman and those guys have kind of laid out the game plan for what they were going to do. And if anyone really paid close attention, he said what they were going to do. He said at number 2, we want to take a gold jacket type guy, a Hall of Fame caliber player. So everyone who's speculating about them wanting a quarterback, last week Ernie Okorzie said Eli Manning still has a couple of championship years left. Dave Gettleman, who did he learn under? Ernie Okorzie. When he was at Carolina, I've had people tell me that he said that Eli Manning is the standard of a franchise quarterback. So if you look at the best way to help that quarterback kind of squeeze out some more years, you do what the New Orleans Saints did. What did the Saints did? They got Alvin Kamara to go with Mark Ingram. They got a nice running game and a versatile combo back to help Drew Brees. So now as he gets older and his skills kind of come back, he can throw an outlet pass and let that guy go the distance. And Saquon Barkley, at the high end, you may get Le'Veon Bell. At the low end, you're getting Reggie Bush. And so for me, I don't think he has bust potential because one way or the other, you can get the production out of him. If he can't run, like some people say, he may not be the best runner in this class, but I'm guaranteed that he can catch 100 passes out the backfield. And in today's game, your running back has to be a factor in the pass game.
And finally, Bucky Brooks, NFL player and a scout, NFL Network analyst, somebody I absolutely, you got a serious podcast with Daniel Jeremiah, who's also excellent. He's a former scout as well. Okay, so I said I could take the quarterback prospects and I could find their weakness and I could put a word with each. With Josh Allen and Lamar, it's accuracy. That scares me. It's hard to throw 56% in college and then 62 in the NFL.
Doesn't happen.
It doesn't happen. It just doesn't happen ever. Baker Mayfield judgment. Bad judgment at 22 guy is bad judgment at 29 guy is bad judgment at 42 guy. Josh Rosen durability. I've always said there's a little Sam Bradford here. But I look at Sam Darnold and it's turnovers. Well, timeout. Jameis Winston threw a ton of picks in college. He didn't throw any in the NFL last year. Marcus Mariota threw no interceptions in college. He's a turnover machine. I think turnovers are about your coaching. Do you have a disciplined receiving core that runs the right routes you trust? Your protection. I'm sorry, but that one word negative on Darnold, it doesn't scare me.
No, it shouldn't be scary. I think it's one of those things that has to be monitored. I think the one thing that you look at with turnovers, the fumbles are more concerning than the interceptions. Gosh, I had a great quarterback tell me this one time. If you want me to make this big-time throw in the fourth quarter, you're going to have to live with some of these interceptions that I throw early in games because I have to figure out what I can do and what I can't do. And if you want Sam Darnold to be the gunslinger that we all love in the Rose Bowl against Texas, bringing his team on the road to Washington and winning games, you have to be able to live with some of those things.
I agree. That's why I defended Andrew Luck for years.
He's a gunslinger, and he's going to push the envelope. Now, as he gets older, he'll be able to rein it in. I think the big thing why everyone is really all in on Sam Darnold, you trust the kid. Like, regardless of what happens in a game, the kid is outstanding. He is a hard worker. He is a leader. And as Clay Helton told me, he gives his teammates hope. What you're looking for in a franchise quarterback is on offense or defense, you want everyone to say, man, if we just get the ball back to Sam, we have a chance.
Right.
And that's what Sam Darnold is, and that's what he does. And because of that, I think you can buy into him being a franchise quarterback.
Who would you take number one? You're a former scout and a player. You do this for a living. Who would you take one?
At Cleveland, I would take Sam Darnold. I think Sam Darnold is the best fit for them. I think he is the right guy. I think he has the leadership ability. Is he a perfect player? No. But in terms of getting it done, I think he will find a way to be successful as a franchise quarterback.
Great stuff. Great having you on.
Glad to be back.
Love seeing you. Coming up next, there's a reason there's a comparison. And I'll lay it out for you. The comparison is valid. That's coming up next. Listen, we just had another data breach. It was Saks Fifth Avenue stores. This stuff is scary. They can take your information, your social security number, and they can put it on the dark web. The dark web, I think, is where Goulet hangs out on the weekend. I don't know what the dark web is. You know, I'm a suburb guy. All I know is if your information gets there, you're in big trouble. That is where new LifeLock identity theft protection comes in. They've added the power of Norton Security. Listen, nobody thinks you can stop every cyber threat or prevent all identity theft or monitor transactions at all businesses. You can't. But LifeLock, new LifeLock with Norton Security, will uncover threats you would probably otherwise miss. 2 ways to get a hold of them, both real easy. Call 1-800-LifeLock. Just call 1-800-LifeLock. Use the promo code HERD. Or just go to LifeLock.com. LifeLock.com. And use the promo code HERD. That gets you an additional 10% off.
There was an idea